Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have asked that I go back in time and watch Paul and Karine on 90 Day Fiancé. I've actually had a chance to talk with Paul on the telephone for a long period of time, so I know where they are today, at least from Paul's side of the story, and he's given me a lot of background to him and Karine and where they've been. But I haven't watched any of the clips and I haven't read any of the news stories, so I'm curious as to how they got to where they are today. So I thought I'd go back in time and watch this show and react to it and see if anything of interest comes out of my face. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see what happens.
Why am I actually going to venture to the Amazon rainforest of all places? I'm taking a huge risk and putting my life on the line for love. I haven't had the best of luck of past relationships here locally. I've been betrayed, I've experienced unfaithful girlfriends, a lot of negative, chaotic things.
Okay, so there are two different, or maybe three different hypotheses that I develop right away as I hear Paul say what he just says. He says he's had a lot of bad relationships. He's talking about betrayal, a string of bad relationships. There are three different possibilities. One is that he's just had terrible luck, which happens sometimes. You just have terrible luck and bad things happen, or you choose the wrong people, or you choose people that you just don't mesh with, whatever. Sometimes meeting the right person is just a matter of luck. I feel like I met my wife on a matter of luck. I mean, the way we met was just so random. It's like, God, what would have happened if we wouldn't have met? I don't know if I would be married today. And so sometimes it is luck. So maybe he's just had really bad luck. The other possibility at the other end of the spectrum is that there's something about him that creates relationships with people that tend to have outcomes that he will frame as difficult or betrayal or terrible relationships, chaotic relationships. So what might that be? Well, that might be relationships in which he pushes people away, or he's not aware of his attachment injuries and reacts from that lack of awareness and hurts other people's feelings and makes people head down roads where they end up betraying him. So that's the other end of the spectrum. He is the common denominator in those past chaotic, terrible relationships, or he just had terrible luck, or it's somewhere in between. So maybe the show will give us more data along those lines.
I went through several different dating apps, and I started gravitating more toward one that actually focused more on Latin dating, because the majority of the population there has very good, strong family values. Karina is 21 years old, and she is very beautiful. I fell head over heels with her pretty quickly. She has more heart than anybody I've ever met. She's perfect in every way.
So after watching this show as much as you have asked me to watch it, I will say that it always starts off this way, right? Where they are communicating over video chat and texting and email, and they have very idealistic viewpoints about each other, and he's exhibiting that. She has a heart of gold. She's wonderful. Everything about her is great. Now, if you're asking me to watch this couple, and actually I know because I talked to Paul last week about all the chaos that they've been through over the years, this doesn't go well. They're still together as far as I know. I don't know exactly today. I'm recording this mid to late August. I don't know exactly the status of the relationship, but they're still involved with each other. And they have, and maybe I'm spoiling it for you if you don't know that, but anyway, there's this tendency that we see, and it's a bit of an interesting psychological and relational social psychology experiment that we have playing out in our society where we couldn't do this before. Maybe we had cases before where there were pen pals that people would idealize each other, or telephone pals where people would idealize each other. I've certainly heard accounts of that. But with the availability to communicate with people in remote villages in Brazil, at any time during the day, then you're looking at a situation we're going to have a lot more of these, lovers and, romance that's happening over the phone. And we see this in the show over and over and over again, where there's heavy idealization. Then they meet, and all that idealization is washed away instantly. And why would we do that? Well, there's a number of different speculation that I would put forth. One is that when you're over video chat and texting, you can avoid, and research actually shows this, you can actually avoid conflict, and you can avoid showing each other the sides of you that are more prickly and more difficult. You're not involved in each other's lives. It's low stakes. You might even only go on video chat when you're in a good mood. And so you're going to only experience the good side of the other person. Also, when we fall in love, most of us have had that experience, we tend to idealize anyway. And so idealization is a normal part of bonding. One might say we even evolved to become obsessively, infatuatedly in love with the other person, where we just want them more and more and more, and any bad data is just sort of shunted aside. The difference in terms of in-person dating as opposed to online is that when you're in person, if the person isn't ideal, you soon realize that pretty quickly, whereas online, you're not given that opportunity. And the beginning phase of that infatuation can be extended because it might be 6 months, 12 months before you actually meet in person, and the dream is flushed down the toilet. So you have this longer longing, and star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, you just want, more of each other, and you don't have access to them, and the idealization builds and builds, and the anticipation builds and builds and builds. I imagine another factor might be that either one of them could be dating other people and the other person wouldn't know it, right? Like, I don't know how long Karine and Paul have been communicating, but let's say Karine is occasionally kind of phases in and out of, okay, this month I'm really into Paul because he seems to be my best bet in terms of a romantic relationship. Well, now this other guy, I'm communicating with him. And so you could hide that and it wouldn't be as apparent to you. And so maybe that's another reason why these idealizations happen. Anyway, let's continue watching.
Bye.
Karine and I have never met in person. Karine lives in a small wooden hut in a very remote town on the Amazon River. She shares a bed with her sister. They have no utilities, no AC. A lot of things that we take for granted, they don't have.
Eu quero te mostrar o quarto que eu durmo.
The only problem is the language barrier.
Okay.
Karine doesn't speak any English, and I don't speak any Portuguese. So our primary method right now is communicating through different translator apps. She'll actually message me in Portuguese, and then the app will rerun it through and spit it back out in English.
So some of you out there might be judging this, thinking like, that is ridiculous. How can you really know each other? How can you fall in love with someone without being able to really communicate? And you have to communicate through an app. And okay, maybe there is some validity there, but I've seen people in real life fall in love at the beginning of their relationship, maybe the first 3 or 4 years, where this is the only way they can communicate. And then, later on, they learn to speak one or the other language or both. And the relationship sustains itself. So just because it looks weird to us or it looks weird to you, like you wouldn't want to do it this way, or it seems, not real, so to speak. Certainly there are people who it is real for them. And, we don't necessarily have to judge that. So that's what I'll say about that.
People are going to look at you like, oh, you're crazy. You only speak the same native language. That's never going to work. My other concern is that Karine's hometown is so remote. You can't drive to it. The only way to get there is to fly into a main city and actually go upriver for several days by boat.
Wow, that is remote. That is remote. I'm sure we're going to see lots of hijinks like when Big Ed went to the Philippines.
I'm leaving in 2 days to make this huge journey to Brazil. I try to overplan. I got 4 standard military footlockers, 1 standard military duffel bag, and my carry-on.
So they're playing the comedy music to, make us think that this is a funny scene. But I have to say, if I was traveling to where he's traveling, I would probably have even more stuff. I mean, with the possible giardia and traveler's diarrhea, one of the solutions is you just bring all your food with you, right? So canned food, this kind of thing. And, why not? If you can pay for the shipping of large boxes, then why not do that? So, now maybe he is a little over the top, but we like to make fun of people like this in our society, right? He's a tech guy. He works in computers, I think. And, we're already making fun of him being overprepared and a little worried about things. And we have this idea of masculinity where you're just supposed to, rip off your shirt and say, I can take it. And, meanwhile, you have diarrhea for 5 days and you almost die. So, there's nothing wrong with being overprepared. I like to be prepared, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
A heat vest to help deal with the temperature. We're down there. It's a head wrap to help heat stroke or heat exhaustion. Helps cool you down.
I mean, it's nerdy. It's nerdy, but why be uncomfortable? When Big Ed went to the Philippines, I talked about this in my reaction, which is I sweat all in my head. I'm pretty sure 90% of my sweat glands are just in my head. And when I go to super hot, humid places like the Philippines, I am miserable. I was just gushing with water. I can't think straight. I remember this one time I was in Veracruz, which is, in the Gulf, and it was so hot and humid that I couldn't think straight. And everyone else, because they're acclimated to the weather, are not only walking around fine, but they're walking up in full button-up shirts, long sleeve, long, dark polyester pants. And anyway, so I would at least consider doing what he's doing. He's like, well, it's going to be real hot, so I'm going to bring all this gear to help me. Now, I'm guessing once he gets there that the gear becomes not very convenient.
We got various types of water filters. Better to have it and not need it than not have it.
2 thumbs up to that, Paul. I agree. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And maybe the only reason why you would not do it is because you don't want to come across like a nerd. And that's just weird judgment from other people.
In regards to the issue of the parasitic fish that'll actually extract the human urine and actually swim up your urethra, the doctor told me to basically take a standard condom and delicately secure it to myself without cutting off circulation, of course. Then it would cover my urethra area.
Wait, there's a parasite that goes up their urethra and you wear a condom if you're going swimming? I probably just wouldn't go in the water if that was the situation.
I actually have more than one pair of these. Better to look like an idiot and be protected than...
Again, they're playing the comedy music, but when I hate mosquitoes, and when I go to Mosquito Land, I really enjoy these kinds of outfits. Again, it looks ridiculous. I grew up with a lot of mosquitoes. There was one summer where I counted 200 mosquito bites one day I just counted every mosquito bite in my entire body, and I had 200 mosquito bites. So when I was a kid, I grew up with a lot of mosquitoes. But since I was a kid, it can really ruin the day when you're just constantly, slapping and worrying about mosquitoes. And when you put one of these on, you're good. I was in the upper Minnesota one time and really needed this. And actually, my whole family, my parents, everyone wore these mosquito net outfits, and it really saved the day. So you look ridiculous, and it can get a little hot, strangely, but better to be overprepared than underprepared.
I wish now that I had definitely studied a lot more Portuguese in the last few weeks. Oh, she's crying. She's upset and crying because the fact that she is having such a difficulty learning English is the problem. I guess she's starting to realize the great amount of obstacles it's going to cause for us. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so our first data point on Karine's personality and Paul's. They went through a kind of a tense moment. Paul, I think, because the cameras are there, is trying to communicate with English in a way that he probably wouldn't have done under normal circumstances. Under normal circumstances, it sounds like they use translators over the phone. And he pushed it a little bit, and she knows she's being filmed too, and she, hung up because she doesn't know how to speak English. She doesn't know how to speak Portuguese, and she said she was crying, and maybe she was ashamed and didn't know what to do. And Paul seemed to have empathy in that situation. He seemed to care. He didn't get angry at her. They quickly reunited over video, and so just some strengths that I see there, just some data.
It's all right. Don't cry. It's okay. Smile.
But we do see a little bit of a dynamic. We don't know. Maybe this is just a one-off example of their relationship, but that she is sad. And that she is coming across like she's ashamed of herself, and he is trying to help her. He's trying to cheer her up, and so we'll catalog that and see if there are other examples down the line that add to that dynamic. Maybe it's just a one-off example of their dynamic. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Yes? DMO? Okay.
If she gets this upset over a video call, not be able to properly communicate, I don't know how she's going to react when I'm there in person. It's a high level of concern for me.
So what that tells me is that he doesn't know her very well. That for the first time, they apparently tried to actually just wing it with actually spoken language, and she became very sad, and he's surprised by that. If I was to take a stab at it, I would say they've known each other for a week, but from my understanding, they've known each other over video, and chatting for a long time. So what does that tell us? I don't know. We'll catalog that data point as well.
Whoa.
She's like, what are you doing to me?
It's the day before I leave for Brazil. I want to follow my heart, but this is a really big risk. My mother and me are extremely close. I think the only person more worried about this trip than me is my mother.
You said it's going to be like 3 weeks?
Be down there 3 weeks.
I would like to know how come you just don't date somebody from here.
I've had so much bad luck in my past relationships, as you know, that I was trying to find something a little different.
So it's similar to this Seinfeld episode in which George Costanza was lamenting the fact that he has made terrible decisions throughout his life and his life hasn't gone well. And so he decides, I think talking with Jerry, that he needs to do whatever he wouldn't do. So if he has an impulse like, oh, I'm going to go to the store and buy some food, but wait, I need to do the opposite of what I'm going to do because maybe it'll go well for me. Instead of putting all my money on black, I'm going to put it on red if, you're playing roulette. And I can't remember how it goes. It was 20 years ago. That episode came out 25 years ago. But anyway, I see a lot of people doing that on this show. They will report that they've had a string of bad relationships and they were getting really fed up and they wanted to give up, and they just thought, well, maybe if I try dating someone in another country, maybe it'll work out. And I'm here to tell you people that doesn't make any sense. It's based on, I'm guessing, this assumption that somehow people from other countries have completely different personalities. Sometimes people will do this to Asian women. As an Asian person myself, I know that this happens. They will perceive, because of stereotypes, that Asian women, women from China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, are subservient and thus much more easy to get along with. And I'm here to tell you, as an Asian person with Asian women in my family, they are not any less or more easy to get along with. They're not subservient. I'm here to tell you. At least not any more than Americans are. Plus, when we talk about East Asian people, we're talking about 2 billion individuals. So from hundreds of disparate cultures. So to generalize that all Asian women, like 1 billion people from East Asia, are subservient is a ridiculous notion. It's like saying all American women are promiscuous or something. There are stereotypes that get swirled around in the world, and I'm sure American women are seen certain ways, but we can all agree that those are not generalizable to every single or even the majority of women in any particular region. Anyway, so the point is that I've seen a lot of people do this where they're like, I've had all those terrible relationships. And what I would wish people do is instead of, putting all their chips on some far-flung area, they would actually go to therapy. Please. And a lot of you have been motivated from watching these videos or listening to my podcast to go to therapy. And I love it when you email me and you tell me that you went to therapy. Everyone deserves to go to therapy. I've been to a lot of therapy. My co-hosts, Umberto and Bob, have been to a lot of therapy. Rebecca has gone to a lot of therapy, if you know her. And it's a thing. Everyone has issues and everyone needs therapy. And some people need therapy more than other people. And if you're having a whole string of relationships where things have gone badly, a really excellent thing to do, a very useful thing to do, a very worthy thing for your investment of time and energy and money is to go to therapy. Because like I said in the beginning, when I hear about a string of relationships, it's either really bad luck, which is possible, there's no way to know, or it was something about you, the way that you actually come together with people. It had nothing to do with the other people, really. I mean, it has to do with them too, but it had to do with your issues meshing with their issues. And if you get to know your issues, one, you'll be able to handle relationships better. And two, you might actually be attracted to a much healthier individual. So instead of going to Brazil, I wish you would have gone to therapy. And like I said, I've been talking to Paul, and I did recommend that thing for him. I think he has been to therapy a little bit. I don't know when. I forget that detail. Anyway, let's continue watching.
Paul hasn't told me too much about Karine. He just told me she's from Brazil and she's in school, and I've seen pictures. That's about all I know. I think it's too far away. I think it's crazy.
I know you thought she looked very young.
She looks like, instead of 21, maybe 12 or 15. She looks young, she does. The pictures I've seen.
I'm highly considering, if things go well, proposing.
I don't think that's smart at all. I just don't think how you can know anybody just on the internet like that when you don't even speak the same language.
So the mom is rational to have these worries. And this is the premise of the show, right? Before 90 days, you have 90 days to do something about visas or something. And the show is based on this notion that you got to get married right away. And I guess they wouldn't be on the show if they weren't having those thoughts. But yeah, people, why rush things? You're young, you have your whole life ahead of you. You don't really know each other. You can't speak each other's language. It makes it hard to date and get to know each other since you live halfway across the world. So, maybe that increases the frantic feelings that you have to get things done really fast. But most people, it takes a long time to figure out if you're a good match for each other. It takes a long time to figure out. I mean, for everyone out there, think about all the past relationships that you've been in the past that didn't go well in the end. Well, I'm guessing for the first bit of time, you thought, ooh, this relationship's going really well. And if you made a choice to say, well, yes or no, should I commit to getting married? There might have, if you were sort of forced to by producers of a TV show or by circumstance, you might have actually said, yeah, I think this is going to work out. And now when you look back, you realize, oh my goodness, that relationship was doomed and I was blind. And so it takes time. And there's no better way to vet the compatibility of a relationship than time. Because If you give a relationship, say 5 years of dating before you get engaged, and you're still together and you're still in love and things are still going well, then yeah, it's a pretty good chance that the next 5 years are also going to be fine. If you have 2 months of it going well, that's not enough time to know usually. Now, there are people who get married within days. I have people in my family. My brother proposed to his wife, his wife of 23 years or something, 25 years. On the third day that they started dating, they knew each other as friends, kind of, but it was right away. And I thought when my brother told me, I was like, oh no, but they're still together 25 years later. And so, it's not like it can't happen. But if you're going to take a bet, and you can give it some time, then why not give it some time? But again, he's on a TV show where you're supposed to accelerate things. And so sometimes I wonder about that. I wonder if the people on the show, do we call them contestants? Do we call them actors, participants? I sometimes worry that they feel the pressure of the cameras and the producers and the viewing public to move things faster than they would normally. I don't know.
I mean, it's just like you said, you have your problems in the past and you have problems here. So why do you think you do any better going to another country? I mean, seriously, Paul. I worry about Paul all the time. I don't know why he's chosen the people he has, honestly. I don't know if he doesn't think highly enough of himself or what, but they haven't been good experiences for him.
The pain is definitely right below for me in regards to the situations I've had in my past. One of the relationships I was in ended so badly, and I'm giving me some serious trouble. And I haven't explained it all to Karine yet.
I just think it's all crazy myself.
So he said one of the relationships ended with some serious trouble to him. So I wonder what that means. Violence, crime, a lot of pain for him. I guess we'll find out.
So, really.
Yeah. I've invested a great deal emotionally in this relationship. If I get burned again, I might just give up on love altogether.
I hope for the best, and I pray it works out,
I know.
And if it doesn't, you come home safe.
So I'll hear that too. And people on this show will say that too. Jeffrey talked this way. Darcy talks this way. If it doesn't work this time, I'm just going to give up on love. Again, if you're one of those people out there where you've given up or you're about to give up and you're not in therapy, go to therapy. And don't just go to any old therapist. Go to a relationship specialist, marriage and family therapist, systemic therapist, interpersonal therapists, psychodynamic, humanistic people. They tend to, it's hard to know, but generally speaking, those tag words are a greater chance of them being able to really help you to walk through your past, walk through your present, walk through your defenses so that you can get to know your attachment-oriented therapist, an EFT therapist. Those would be someone else to look for. People to get to know your attachment issues, get to know your attachment reactivity, get to know how that tends to mesh badly with other people and you spin out of control and you go back and forth and it ends really terribly, repeatedly with many different relationships. Anyway, so I've worked with people like that. I've worked with a lot of clients who had given up, but inside they really wanted romance. They wanted attachment. And they thought there was no way to get their needs met. And it's not hard therapy, actually. It's fairly easy to do. And it depends, it depends on if there's significant complex trauma, but therapy can be a great thing for it. In this episode, this is just me trying to yell at you about going to therapy. So anyway, let's continue watching.
Good.
My mother's taking me to the airport. She's feeling extremely emotional about me leaving.
What, is this a doctor?
Oh, no. I'm just here.
Here.
No, I had off my brush thinking no.
She actually just snuck out and gave me a little bit of her hair from her comb to take with her. It means a lot. That's actually something, it's her hair. Very sweet of her to do something like that for me.
Okay. So I'm guessing some people might consider that to be an odd gesture. There's different ways of communicating one's love and care for each other in a family, and she was hoping to communicate that, and he received that communication. Us watching this on the outside might go, ew, or gross, or nasty, or what in the world, but who are we to judge how people love each other? The mom does this. I think that's kind of an older thing. I seemingly remember hearing accounts of people doing that, say 100 years ago in the United States, where when you wanted to, connect with someone far away, you would send them a lock of your hair, or you'd have a pendant that you carried around with locks of hair. So maybe it's a holdover from that tradition.
I'll make sure I pack it in here. Something to get in here.
You better get ahead, because, you're supposed to be there so much before your flight.
Yep.
I don't know, Paul. I hope it's all right. I really do.
All right.
So I will say that one of the things that I will often assess when people come to me because of relationship issues and romance issues is one's parents. Not only in the ways that I've talked about in previous episodes in terms of trauma and attachment and parenting style, but also in terms of awkwardness. We could say that everyone is somewhere on the scale of awkwardness. Now, sometimes this gets related to autism, but that's a whole other topic. Certainly people who are on the spectrum of autism, they can be awkward at times, but they're not always. But there's this whole other thing, which is just the ability to come off smooth and cool and interesting and dynamic and attractive and, gravitational and extroverted and, easygoing. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's extremely awkward, where you come across as kind of off, and you might have some quirks that don't really make sense to people. You're socially anxious. You don't have gravitational pull. In fact, you kind of have a repulsive effect on people around you. And I think, I don't know if Paul would identify this way. I think he might, because I talked with him on the phone, and he seemed to indicate this on a certain level. He, I think, comes across as a little awkward. He's kind of a classic, stereotypical computer guy, and he has some quirks, shall we say. And so does Mom, I would say. There's nothing pathological about that. It's just a way of being. And people tend to, awkward people tend to be attracted to each other. When I was watching Married at First Sight, the one couple I never commented on from season 10 was, I think it's Jessica and Austin. The reason why I never commented on them is because they were such a good couple and they were so lovely together all the time. There wasn't much to say other than like, wow, look how great this couple gets along. And they both talk about how they're both kind of weird, a little awkward. So awkward people tend to match up, and then they have awkward kids, and the awkwardness gets passed down through the generation. There's nothing pathological about it, but it can make it a little difficult when you are an awkward kid if you're trying to date, because you just don't really have that, attractive juice, if you will. And it's hard to get relationships going. It's a little bit of a barrier. But when you find other awkward people or other people who aren't afraid to be over-prepared and aren't pretentious, then you find your lid to every pot, right? So, that's just something that comes to mind, seeing the way that the mom presents.
Here we go. Ready?
Yep.
You sure? No change in your mind?
This is definitely crazy, and you only live once. I'd rather go to my deathbed saying, hey, I did this, hey, I did that. And man, I could have done this and I could have done that.
I try to live by that motto as well. I don't know if I would do something like this, but that's a good motto to live by. You got one life to live on this planet. You might as well not regret things, And so he's taking a chance. And when you're at this stage of the show, it's full of possibilities. It's just like, is this going to be one of the couples where they get together and they have real minimal issues and everything works out fine? One of the rare couples. Or is this going to be one of the interesting ones? Now, because I've talked to Paul, I know where they end up, and I know that this has a lot of ups and downs. So let's continue watching.
Here we are. This is it.
It takes roughly 17 hours, 3 flights, just to get from Louisville, Kentucky to Manaus, Brazil, and then several-day boat journey to get to Karine's hometown.
Several day boat journey. Several days on a boat. That is, and he's going to have all that gear with him. That is, we'll see how that goes.
How are we going to do this, Paul? One at a time. You can't take
One
it.
at a time. I have to one at a time.
All right.
I've never left the country, but there's no turning back now.
The other 2 are the heavy ones.
They're gonna be a bitch.
He's never left the country. Wow. So this is quite a first trip outside of the United States.
How do I get involved in this, Paul? Tell me,
I
how
don't
did I
know.
get involved in this?
I'm the crazy son.
Yeah,
So
you are the crazy son.
I am going to meet somebody and possibly propose.
Oh, wow, getting serious, I see then, huh? Well, Paul, I hope it all works out for you. Your gate is gate B4, your bags are checked all the way through. And good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, good luck to you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Remember when you could shake people's hands that you just met? It makes me wistful for the old days.
I hope you thought about this up really well, and I wouldn't be doing it, but just be careful. Don't lose your passport. Stay safe. So I can't go up farther, so you have to. I just hope it all goes well.
I love
Worry
you.
about you. I hope it's all well. Love you too. Love you too. I love you too. Love you too. Love you too. Get your stuff. It'll be okay. You'll be calling me too, so it'll be fine.
I got what you gave me.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, bye.
This house don't feel like home anymore.
I love their accent too. Louisville accent is very pleasing. It's just a little bit of a lilt, and just has that. You just trust that voice. People who talk with that accent. If you're not from the United States, you might not even hear an accent. I don't know if you do, but there's a definite Louisville accent there.
this is it. I'm about to meet Karine. I might be coming home engaged or utterly heartbroken.
Yeah, well, I know where it ends up because I just talked to you last week. Incidentally, he called me, and he's not a client. He called me because he just wanted to hear my opinion about some things. And maybe one day he'll come on the show. But honestly, whenever I watch these couples, I always feel like I know them really well because I pore over their. I watch this show in a way that most people don't. Usually, when you watch the show, you just kind of watch it while you're eating nachos or something. For me, it's just like I'm really intently watching and I'm really intently thinking about them. And I have dreams about them. Not really, probably, who knows. But anyway, and at the end of it all, I sometimes just want to talk to them, just say, like, hey, just want to check in with you. How you doing? Sometimes they reach out to me. Ash has reached out to me. Jessica on Love is Blind. I reached out to Erica I through Instagram. I just wanted to say, hey, just hope you're doing okay. And so we exchanged for a little bit. So mostly I'm just wanting to connect and to ask if to see if they're doing okay because I care. And so with Paul, it was a similar situation. I mean, I kind of knew because I know a little bit about Paul's story because a while back I went all the way back to this season and watched Darcy. And would catch little glimpses of Paul's story, but it was very, very brief. So we had, I know at some point like a phone is stolen or in Brazil, that kind of thing, but I didn't really know much beyond that. And so when Paul wanted to connect with me, I was just like, oh, that'll be good. And I'm always clear that I'm not their therapist. I don't want to take them on as a client. And I'm just, someone that can listen and just be a human to human, compassionate listener of some kind. So that's, what I talked with Paul about. He also had some questions about different mental conditions that I provided him some education about. And he was appreciative of that. And maybe we'll talk in the future. But the reason why I say all this stuff is because a lot of listeners, a lot of you will sometimes hope that I have these people on the show and that we could hash it out. And, that'd be interesting too, for sure. But that's a pretty big ask for these people. There's a lot of vulnerability in that kind of conversation. I would imagine for a lot of them, they're not super enthusiastic about that because it's like, oh boy, he's a therapist. He's going to ask some pretty tough questions. I don't know if I want to have that exposed to the internet, which, I can totally respect. So, we'll see what happens as time moves forward. Maybe I'll talk with Paul live on the show. But honestly, it's not a big priority of mine. Mainly, I'm hoping that him and Karine and their son. Again, sorry if this is a spoiler. I just really hope that they're able to find stability and a lack of chaos and the ability to be okay in the world and take care of their son in a way that'll help that child grow up well. And for each of them actually to recover from a lot of traumas that the two of them have been through. So anyway, I'm rambling. Tune in next time when I go to episode 2 of season 1, 90 Day Fiancé, before the 90 days. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.